and we are live with another edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside once again by my co-host, Andrew Johnson, as we are now past Week 8 in this year's National Football League season, and a very wild week in the NFL, to say the least, Andrew. A lot of chaos went down, especially during the witching hour and the 1 o'clock slate that we had on Sunday. Some big-time upsets, teams moving into first place in their respective divisions, a very good slate in the prime time on Sunday night as well as Monday night. And we even saw a trade go down today as well in the NFL, and even news involving a certain team now switching to a new quarterback going into this upcoming weekend. So a lot to unfold going out of week 8, now going into week number 9 of this year's NFL season.
Now, since we're past week 8, right? Would you say that we're halfway there?
We are certainly halfway there.
Would you say that some of these teams are living on a prayer?
Um, some of these teams are. Some of the teams are looking to next year.
Damn, you could really just relate Bon Jovi to everything, even the NFL season. All right, I'm ready to kick things off. We got a lot to talk about.
Yep. And I'm gonna apologize in advance if if I don't sound as chipper, but I think everyone will know why when we get to the last game of our slate later on in the show. So I'll get my spirits up a little bit better now before we go into that final game of the week. But let's start off on Thursday night, Johnson, between the Vikings and the Rams. And going into this game, a lot of people were wondering, why was this game on paper a very close encounter between these two teams? Like, why are the Vikings, who were 5-1, obviously coming off a loss the previous week, why was it a close spread than you usually think? Because the Rams were coming in this game just with 2 wins on the season. Well, lo and behold, the big reason why, they get Cooper Cup and Puka Nakua as well back for this game. And boy, did they both show out in this game, especially Puka Nakua. Nakua's first game back, he goes for 100 yards. Cooper Cup added a touchdown as well. Kyron Williams, another sensational performance in the backfield. Matthew Stafford threw 4 passing touchdowns. And despite a very controversial play towards the end of this game, which a face mask should have been called on the Rams, but instead it led to a safety for Los Angeles, they are able to hold on for a 30-20 win over the Vikings. They now go to 3-4 in the season. It's now back-to-back losses for the Vikings as they now drop to 5-2 on the year. But a lot of controversy, obviously, from that one face mask penalty that happened at the late stages of that game, because that was a drive in which if the Vikings were able to go down the field and get a touchdown plus a 2-point conversion, they would have had a chance to tie the game. But instead, they come down with the loss, now back-to-back losses for them, and they'll now try to avoid a third straight loss on Sunday night this week.
Yeah, like you said, this game was very close on paper, and even our friends were saying like this game feels like a trap for Vikings, and that's exactly what it was because it seems like Matt Stafford turned back the clock for just a little bit. You had Puka Nakua coming back, and he just had a phenomenal start. I mean, he went for 7 receptions, 106 yards. Um, Overall, just an excellent game by Los Angeles here. You got to
Yep.
give credit where credit's due here. They had a game plan. Cooper Cup really was the decoy this time around. You mentioned Kyron Williams. And if you're a Vikings fan now, do you begin to panic, especially if your schedule down the road, how that looks?
I think you start to panic if you lose on Sunday night. I think if you lose to the Colts this week, that's 3 straight losses. I think that's where you start panicking, because if you look at the Vikings' next couple games, you have to see what happens against the Colts. That could be a flip flop game. Could go really realistically anyway. The Jaguars have been bad this season. You would hope that maybe they can get Paul to win in that game. The Titans have also been pretty bad this season, and then they go to Chicago for a tough test with the Bears. So it's not as easy. The Vikings are still a weird team, I think, in a lot of people's views, because are they the team that started the season off 5-0, defense playing dominantly, Sam Darnold doing just enough to win these games? Or are they the team for the past 2 weeks where they made a couple mistakes early on in these games offensively? Their defense has really struggled the last 2 games as well in terms of secondary. So I think everyone's still trying to figure out what exactly this Vikings team's identity is, as we're now at pretty much the halfway point in the season. And I think if they lose on Sunday night to the Colts, then you really start to get worrying, because as we know in that division, Johnson, the NFC North has been amazing this season. But for some teams in the NFC North this week, they unfortunately had a very tough weekend. So if you're a team like, let's say, the Packers, who were able to pull out a win, as well as the Lions, you're sitting pretty well right now with you being at the top of this division. And if you're Minnesota, and we'll get to the other team, the Chicago Bears, later, but you're coming off tough losses this past week. You really need to get something going because it's not going to get any easier, not only for you trying to win this division, but just to make the NFC playoffs as a wild card itself.
The sad thing is, even their quality of schedule has been pretty good. They have 3 good wins against good teams, against the Niners, against the Texans, and against the Packers. And they beat up on the Jets and Giants. So they played
Yep.
3 good teams, and they beat up the New York teams. And then they played a fun spirited game with the Lions, 6-1 on the year, and then they got blanked by the Rams, unfortunately. So I have a feeling with Joe Flacco starting, spoiler alert, he's back. It may look a little bit different for him next week, but only
Yeah.
time will tell.
Only time certainly will tell. But let's now go into Sunday, Johnson. And man, what a way to start off Sunday with probably one of the biggest upsets we've had all season happening in the NFL, and that was the Cleveland Browns with now new starting quarterback Jameis Winston pulling off the stunner over the Ravens, who had come into this game winning 5 straight games. The Browns were on a losing streak itself, so it looked like their season was pretty much over. And obviously, the first game without Deshaun Watson after he got injured last week, tearing his Achilles. And man, did Jameis Winston ball out in this game. 334 yards passing, 3 passing touchdowns. And despite a late rally from Baltimore trying to get back into this game, Lamar Jackson and company could not get the touchdown on the final play of the game as they fall to the Browns 29-24, as I mentioned. Baltimore now drops to 5-3 on the season. And the Browns do get their second win of the year, but a very feel good story for Cleveland to get this victory and what's been a very rough season for them.
Can you smell what Jameis is cooking? Famous Jameis, his bakery's open once again, but this time he's not serving turnovers. He's only serving wins. Big win over the Ravens, like you said, and you got to thank Jameis Winston here. It looks like that LASIK surgery finally paid off, right?
Sometimes in this game, it didn't look like that was going to be the case, but towards the end of this game,
I
he
mean, it
really
looks like
made
he
some good
really
throws.
turned it on. Like he was
Yeah,
really
he
making
should have
good
had an
reads.
interception or two, but the Ravens dropped them both.
Yeah, and you
So
know what? Lamar Jackson again played another phenomenal game, and kind of feel bad for him when he loses a game like this because it's definitely a game that he didn't deserve to lose, but that's how it be sometimes.
I mean, think about the Ravens. Two of their losses this season are two teams that are well under 500. Now this loss to Cleveland and that loss to Vegas earlier in the season. So the Ravens are, we thought that at the last couple of weeks that they have been proving themselves to be one of the more dominant teams in the league, but a very weird loss to this Browns team where Jameis Winston, as we mentioned, really shined out and proved himself in this game. And we kind of figured, we were kind of clamoring for Jameis to be the starting quarterback for weeks after the way Deshaun Watson was playing this season. And now he gets that opportunity. And this is a big spot for him, Johnson, as well, because his future obviously is playing a lot on the line for this season. How the rest of the regular season goes, he could potentially get himself a starting quarterback job next season with either maybe Cleveland or maybe with just any other team in the NFL.
Absolutely. And my fellow David Njoku truthers, he's having a great game now. You give him a good quarterback, David Njoku's going to perform. So that's the second week in a row now. Since he's come back, he's looked pretty good. So I'm excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, I remember what happened last season as well when they had Joe Flacco come in. He had a really rough start to the season because he wasn't really getting that many targets. And once they made a quarterback change due to an injury, that's when he started to cook. And he showed in this game a very nice game for Njoku and even Cedric Tillman, who had 99 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns, including the game winner to give Cleveland a stunning upset over their division rival, the Baltimore Ravens. Now going into another divisional matchup, let's talk about the Falcons and Buccaneers. Second strong game between these two teams. And this is despite the fact, Johnson, that the Buccaneers did not have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin for this game, both getting injured in the Buccaneers' last game on Monday night against the Ravens. And despite that fact, Baker Mayfield did have some early mistakes, 2 early interceptions that put the Buccaneers into a hold, but he got Tampa Bay back into this game. Strong outing from him, as well as Cade Otton, who had a monster game with 2 touchdown receptions. But it really came down to the Falcons, early start in this game and able to maintain and hold that lead. Kirk Cousins throws 4 passing touchdowns, 2 of them going to Kyle Pitts, another one to Darnell Mooney, and another one to Bijan Robinson. And Atlanta holds on to win this game by the final of 31-26. They now go into first place in the NFC South by themselves. Tampa Bay now drops into second place at 4-4. but still a 1 game lead in this division, Johnson, for Atlanta. But now, because they have played 2 times, Atlanta now is in the driver's seat for the NFC South this season with that two. Now, basically, it basically is a 2 game lead for the Falcons because they own both wins over Tampa Bay this season. So the Buccaneers will have to do some work down the stretch if they want to win this division.
Yeah, and it was a great end to Kirktober. Kirk Cousins on the month, 1,242 yards, 10 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He gets 3 wins, 1 loss in Kirktober, and he really proved it this game too. 276 for 4 passing touchdowns, almost 80% completion ratio. So
6 incompletions.
it's just, Kirk Cousins, month of October's always his, and I dare I say it, is he gonna come back down to earth? I really think so. So
Well,
if I'm a
yeah.
Falcons hater right now, I'm sitting pretty right now.
Yeah, I mean, you're Tampa, you're obviously hoping that's the case because you're still trying to recover from your injuries that you currently got slated, and you have a very tough game coming up on Monday against the Chiefs. So they need Kirk Cousins to hopefully have that downfall, like some people may be clamoring for. But Kirk's got a tough matchup against the Cowboys upcoming this weekend, so that could be a game maybe they fall to because it kind of feels like that game they just had against Seattle, Johnson, where everything started to go right for the Falcons, and then everyone was expecting them to beat Seattle, and then they just kind of fell flat and got beat down by the Seahawks a couple weeks ago. But maybe that won't be the case on Sunday when they take on Dallas. Um, Another divisional matchup that we had this past weekend was a battle for the AFC South as the Colts went into Houston to take on the Houston Texans, and a lot of storylines coming out of this game, Johnson, for a multitude of reasons. Anthony Richardson had a very up and down game, had a nice touchdown pass early in this one to Josh Downs to give the Colts an early 10-3 lead. The Texans would fight back before the halftime, getting a touchdown to Tank Dell to take the lead. It looked like towards the end that Houston was going to hold on and win this game. They had a very costly fumble that gave the Colts new life, got them down the field, and they were able to take a touchdown and make it a field goal game. But that's where the controversy kind of started in this game as well, Johnson. Or maybe it was in the third quarter, excuse me. The third quarter is where the controversy started. I'll get to that in a second. Um, Colts would have a chance towards the end of this game to go down the field and try to tie the game, but they are unfortunately not able to do so. Houston hangs on in this game by the final of 23-20. They now go to 6-2 in the season, have a 2 game lead now on the Colts in the AFC South, and they also have both wins over the Colts this season. So it's pretty much now a 3 game lead for Houston in terms of them holding first place over the Colts in this division. But as I mentioned, a lot of storylines coming out of this game. The Texans do lose Stephon Diggs in this game. He is now going to be out for the rest of the regular season with a torn ACL, a brutal loss for them. And he's an impending free agent upcoming this season, so we'll see what his status is for next year. They're still waiting back to see if Nico Collins will come back. They probably won't have him back for Thursday, so they have a very short week as they take on the Jets on Thursday night. And on the other side of things for the Colts, Anthony Richardson had a very controversial sequence in this game where it was a 3rd and goal in the third quarter, and he had to be subbed out of the game. He pretty much told his coaches, "Listen, I'm tired. I need to play off. Like, bring Joe Flacco in the game and um, let them run the ball on 3rd and goal. At least get us better field goal positioning." That was the case, but Richardson, as people have been saying, have tapped out in that spot and did come back to play the rest of this game, but not a great look for the young quarterback. And because of that, Johnson, and maybe because of another couple things in terms of how this game went for Anthony Richardson, he is now going to be benched upcoming this Sunday night against the Vikings. As you mentioned, Joe Flacco is now going to be the starting quarterback for the Colts this upcoming weekend. So a lot to intake as to what the Colts' direction now is going to be. As I mentioned, a really rough game for Richardson, and now it leads to him being benched and seeing what his future now holds in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I have to believe that those direct comments on the field uh, kind of led them to believe that hey, he's not ready for this moment yet because you won't see any veteran quarterback clamoring to be taken out of the game. Quite the opposite. You've seen guys like Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Kirk Cousins, Alex Smith, you name it, Drew Brees, whoever it is, all get injured and tell the coach, no, leave me in, I'm fine. And then maybe, just maybe, when they're finally off the field and the offense is off the field, then they get their rest. So that definitely had something to do with it. But we all kind of, and Anthony Richardson needed reps to develop, and I don't know if Joe Flacco is definitely the better, uh,
Option at this point.
yeah, better option at this point. But 5 years down 5 years from now, I think they're gonna be regretting this
I
decision.
think I think the problem with Anthony Richardson, and remember, keep this in mind, folks. So Anthony Richardson was a 1 year starter at Florida. He was a one and done player in Florida. So everyone knew there was a risk to taking him in the NFL draft. And the Colts, we know what the story was for them. They had been looking for a quarterback ever since Andrew Luck had retired. So it had been a while since they were able to get into the spot taking a quarterback that high in the NFL draft. And they did that with Anthony Richardson. Now, remember what happened last season with Richardson. He played 2 games. The third game of the season is where everything went downhill. He went to it was, and funny enough, it was against this same exact Houston Texans team. He gets injured, has a concussion at first, then he gets subbed back in, or he had a concussion the week before. It gets sub, plays the next week, and he tries to slide to get a touchdown, gets the touchdown, but also gets injured on the play on his, I believe it was his throwing arm, or maybe it was to his left arm. I don't remember exactly which
Yeah, I
arm it
believe it was his
was.
throwing arm.
Um, but it knocked him out for the rest of the regular season. So he had only played 2 NFL games last season, and now we're what? We just finished week 8 of this season, and we already have seen him out for one of those games as well. He did not play against the Jaguars. He got taken out or against the Steelers in that game as well. So he's played pretty much about what, maybe 6 games, maybe 7 at best
7
this
games in the
season,
NFL. Yeah, it's not a
and
lot.
it's still not a lot. Like we still, I don't know. Like it's tough to really venture out to say what he brings to the table for your team. A lot of incompletions this past Sunday. That's definitely a concern. There were some drop balls, so that doesn't help him as well. The offensive line hasn't been that great. Like they've been on and off this season, but his decision making has been what's worrisome for this team. And I think it's still tough to know what you're going to get out of him because we're at the stage now, Johnson, where we see some of these quarterbacks now having a longer leash. Like look at Bryce Young; he didn't have a long leash in Carolina. Played 18 games as a starter and was immediately benched for Andy Dalton. Now the same thing's happening to Anthony Richardson, and this was even a shorter leash, just pretty much 7 or 8 games into his NFL career, and now he's being benched for Joe Flacco. And I guess the only thing that you can take a positive out of this is that hopefully, with Flacco, he can mentor Richardson in making better decisions, and he could see it on the sideline as Flacco's playing this game, and maybe for the rest of the season, we'll have to see. And that will help Anthony Richardson down the line being a better quarterback in the NFL and for the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, I'm always a fan of quarterbacks sitting for a year, and Joe Flacco is a proven veteran quarterback that can not only perform at a high level still, but he can also help teach Anthony Richardson how to actually perform week in and week out in the NFL. So I'm excited to see this develop.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind also he didn't really have a big mentor last season. Like, no disrespect to Gardner Minshew, but Flacco is seen and has been in the league way longer than Gardner Minshew has been, and
He's won a
I think
Super Bowl. He's been in the
right,
big game. He knows the pressure, so
right.
it's a completely different comparison.
Right. So I think it's best for the Colts to like rest them and see like what you can fix in practice and how you can fix that on the field when he gets back into game time and plays in these games. But I think for now is the best time as ever because they're they're a 4-14. They're fighting for a playoff spot right now early in the season, and they cannot afford to really lose some of these games down the next couple of weeks because then it puts them out of playoff position. And they think that Flacco can keep them in that spot, and I think that is definitely the right case because, like I mentioned earlier, look what he did with Cleveland last season. He got them into the postseason after it looked like their season was lost after Watson got injured last year, and he got Cleveland all the way into the wild card and almost, other than that bad playoff game, he had a very strong season. And the Colts are now hoping that is going to be the case for them this year as they try to get back into the postseason for 2024, 2025. Uh, quick note on the next game that we have coming up, the Bills dominating win over the Seattle Seahawks in this game in Seattle. Josh Allen did throw his first interception of the season, so it was kind of time was kind of coming for Allen. That was
Hey,
it's
he
going to
almost made
happen to him.
half a season without throwing an interception. That's a
Right.
record for him.
He
Listen, this is a
he
guy
was he
that's
was
led
good.
the This guy's led the NFL in turnovers the last couple of years, so
Right.
this has been a fantastic turnaround for him. He's finally beginning to put it together.
Right. He was due eventually. It was going to happen, but the Bills have no complaints for how this game went for them. I mean, Allen throws for 280, two touchdowns. James Cook had a monster game, 111 yards and two rushing touchdowns. Khalil Shakir over 100 yards receiving. They're still getting Amari Cooper adjusted to the offense, so he's not there just yet. And they also took a pretty big advantage over, the Seahawks not having DK Metcalf in this game. And a big way that they did that was stopping the running game as well. I mean, 17 carries for 32 yards as a team for Seattle in terms of rushing. A very dominant performance on that ground. And as well as in the secondary, as Geno Smith only threw for 212 yards and threw an interception. So the Bills defense, as they are at least hoping, is now trying to catch fire early in the midway point of this NFL season. They win by a final of 31-10 and now go to 6-2 on the season. And with the way the rest of the AFC East, is going this year, Johnson, it looks like early on
It's fair
Buffalo's got
division.
this division. Yeah, it looks like they got this division on hold and should not falter at any point in the season. And for Seattle,
Yeah, I'd be
they,
shocked if it give it up.
it would have to be catastrophic. I don't see any way they possibly lose this. But at least for Seattle, the only good thing that comes out of it is even with the loss, they're still technically in first place, but they're in a three-way tie for first. And a big game upcoming on Sunday, and they're hoping that they get DK Metcalf back for that game against the Rams, which we'll preview later on in the show. But Johnson, we have to go to this next game, and man, it was one of the more wilder endings we've had all season, and maybe in the last couple of seasons in the NFL. The game between the Chicago Bears and the Washington Commanders. And going into this game, we did not know if Jaden Daniels was going to start for Washington as he had that injury the week prior with his ribs. Did get the nod for Washington in this game, so we got our matchup between the number one and number two picks in this past year's NFL draft. And Jaden Daniels really shined in this game over Caleb Williams. 326 yards, a touchdown pass that I'll get to in just a moment. Solid running game for the Commanders overall as a team. The Bears itself, they couldn't really get the passing game involved, but they had a monster running game in this game from DeAndre Swift. 129 rushing yards and a touchdown. Roshan Johnson got the Bears a touchdown late in this game after the Bears were able to force a pass interference on the Commanders that set them up inside the one. They got a touchdown for Roshan Johnson with 25 seconds left, taking a 15-12 lead. And it looked like right there and then, Johnson, that was going to be the game for Chicago. A big win for them to go put them at 5-2. But lo and behold, miracles do happen, and that was the case for the Commanders in this game. Jaden Daniels throws a Hail Mary pass down the field. Ball gets tipped at the line of just before the end zone, pretty much at the goal line. Gets tipped into the end zone, and Noah Brown, it falls into his waiting arms. He catches it for the game-winning touchdown as the Commanders stun the Bears 18-15 in the final, and they now go to 6-2 in the season. And I mentioned it. I might have mentioned it this season. I don't know if I have or not on the show, but it seems as if ever since the Commanders got Dan Snyder out of the building and now they no longer have him as the owner, a lot of magical things have been happening for this franchise, and they look to it looks like they finally have that franchise quarterback in Janie Daniels. And if you're the Bears, maybe concerning that maybe you took the wrong quarterback because Daniels really outshined over Caleb Williams in this matchup.
Yeah, remember they said last week that Caleb Williams is going into a period now where he has to play actual competition. He's not playing the worst defenses in the NFL, and we also have to kind of acknowledge now that this defense that Caleb Williams has is probably top five defense currently in the NFL.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, they've given up 20 points. They've given up 20 points once this entire season. It's just it's mind-boggling right now how good of a defense it is. And now, if Jaden Daniels didn't get that, Hail Mary, he would have had over 320 scrimmage yards against a top five defense in the NFL as a rookie quarterback.
Right.
Now, the Commanders' defense is good, but it's not like Chicago Bears' defense because the Commanders, they've given up
They're all
their
right.
fair share of 25, 30-point games so far this season, but the Bears haven't yet. And to
Right.
have Jane Daniels perform like that against the Bears means more than Caleb Williams performing like this against the Commanders. And you know what? If their stats are that close at the end of the year, this is going to be the deciding factor for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, right now Daniels has it on clear lock that he's going to be the rookie of the year the way the
Yep.
season's gone, and because the Commanders are right now fighting for the division title as well in the NFC East, he certainly has to be the clear cut favorite to win that award, and he has a great shot to get Washington back into the playoffs for the first time since COVID when they won the division in 2020 and the year where the NFC East was really really bad. And now it's been one of the better divisions in football because of how Washington has played this season. It's been a really shocking way they've been playing, but hey, it's worked so far. They're now 6-2 and potential 7-2 as they'll take on the Giants upcoming on Sunday. Um, Going in now into our primetime slate, Johnson, let's go into Sunday night's game between the Cowboys and the 49ers. Early on in this game, Dallas was pretty much controlling the Niners up front in this one defensively. It was 10-6 going into the half. The Niners realistically could not move the football down the field. They had an injury as well to Jordan Mason, which knocked them out of the game. So it looked like right there and then the trouble was going to be happening for San Francisco. Then the second half happened, and that's kind of where, or I should say, maybe not the second half, but maybe that third quarter started, and that's where San Francisco started to take advantage of the Cowboys' defense. Isaac Guerrero, the rookie running back, got a touchdown to put San Francisco up 3. They then answered 5 minutes later with another touchdown from Brock Purdy to George Kittle. Purdy then 7 minutes later would score another touchdown, rushing this time to give the Niners a 17-point lead going into the fourth quarter. However, though, as we see from years past, the Niners with a double digit lead tend to sometimes give these leads up, and that was almost the case in this game. CeeDee Lamb had an unbelievable performance in this game and a really a big time performance as well in the fourth quarter. 2 receiving touchdowns in the fourth quarter puts the Cowboys within 6, but the Niners were able to run the clock down and were able to get some key first downs down the stretch of this game as they hold on for a 30-24 win over Dallas. They now go to 4-4 on the season. Dallas now falls to 3-4 on the year, and a rough game for Dallas. They didn't have Rico Dowdle in this game due to an illness, so we're not able to run the football efficiently. Dak made some early mistakes that thrown 2 interceptions in this game, and despite the fact that Lamb goes off, um, the offense really just was not there for the Cowboys in the first half, and the Niners getting that big third quarter is the difference of this game, and them now going to an even 500 record.
Yeah, this is the fourth game that Dak has had 2 touchdowns in. This is also the fourth game he's had 2 interceptions, where Dak is now 10-8 in the year when it comes to touchdowns and picks. Uh, 260 yards a game, 84 Q passer rating. I think Dallas makes a change of quarterback at the end of the year.
You think they're going to bench Dak?
I don't know if they're going to bench him, but they're going to try to. They're gonna try to get rid of him. I know he has the one of the larger contracts in
I
the
mean, they just
NFL.
paid him. I don't see
I
how they're getting
know,
rid of
I
him.
know, but Jared Jones have done. He has done stranger things before.
That would be asinine, I will say. If they gave Dak
Would
all
you?
that money just
Would you
to
put it?
trade him.
Okay. Would you put him? Would you put it past Jerry Jones? Yes or
I
no?
wouldn't, but if that was the case,
There you
why
go.
wouldn't you just no, but my thing is though, if you gave him all that money, what was the point of doing that? Because he was a free agent at the end of the season to begin with.
Because Jerry Jones is the most undecisive owner in the NFL.
Slash GM too, because he's the one
Yeah, I
making
forget
these
he's the GM
decisions for the team.
sometimes.
Yeah, it's Dallas is in must win mode right now too because they're 3-4. Tough game against Atlanta on Sunday. You really cannot afford to lose that game. You drop to 3-5, you're putting yourselves in a bad position to be even playoff worthy or at least able to make a playoff spot. Um, but there's a lot of concerns with this team. They're still very injured on the defensive front. They can't stop the run. They've had troubles in the secondary the last couple weeks as well. And Dak, as you mentioned, is forcing a lot of bad throws that have been intercepted. So they need to get that turnover number down as well. But as a Giants fan, I'm not really upset by Dallas faltering. But yeah, that's what's been happening for the Cowboys the last couple weeks. Um, and unfortunately, speaking of the Giants, let's go into the final game of the week that happened last night on Monday Night Football between the Giants and the Steelers. And I will say, for the majority of this game, it was back and forth. It was a pretty solid, showing from the Giants early in this game. Where the things started turning away, Johnson, was early in the fourth quarter. So it was 9-9 going into the half, all field goals between these two teams. The Steelers got the first touchdown in this game on a punt return, which should not have been a punt return because there was a roughing the kicker. that was now called on the Steelers. So it allowed the Steelers to get a touchdown on the punt return. They take a 16-9 lead going into the fourth. Calvin Austin then would get a receiving touchdown to start the fourth quarter, putting the Steelers up by 14. The Giants did respond pretty quickly, just 2 minutes later, getting a big rushing touchdown from Tyrone Tracy to put them within 8. Then that's where everything really started going downhill. They go for a 2-point conversion to try to make it a 6-point game. It's one of the worst play calls I have probably seen. Maybe not even the play call. Maybe one of the worst efforts I've seen on a play that has happened in maybe the history of the NFL. They try to go for a wide receiver screen into Malik Neighbors. They had pretty much some of their big offensive linemen setting up in front of Neighbors, trying to get him a block. And there was only one guy in the Steelers, there to make the play for Pittsburgh. And if he doesn't, if he gets blocked, Neighbors is in for the 2-point conversion. The Giants don't even block on the play. 4 guys there. They allow the one guy to get past all of them. Highsmith makes the tackle. Giants don't get the 2-point conversion. They're still down 8. They had a chance later on in this game, still down by 8. It was then 26-18. Daniel Jones got them down the field. That they started the drive at the 6-yard line. They got into Steelers territory, but a couple of miscues cost the Giants. He throws an interception on the final drive of the game. I also forgot to mention the previous drive they had before. They had, or maybe 2 drives before, they got into the Steelers territory. Daniel Jones had a strip sack fumble from T.J. Watt. That let the Steelers again go down the field and going up by 11. Then the Giants, a couple of drives later, as I mentioned, Jones would throw the game-losing interception as the Steelers hang on 26-18, the final of this game. Steelers now go to 6-2 on the season. Russell Wilson has been looking pretty good so far since he's become the starting quarterback of the Steelers. Najee Harris went off for 114 yards in this game. And despite a great game from Tyrone Tracy and company, the consistent problem continues for the Giants, and that is the quarterback play has just been horrific all season long. I said it last week. I made my piece about it. Like I mentioned, there is no light at the end of the tunnel for this team. It just gets worse and worse each and every week as they now drop on the season to 2-6.
Well, no, there's light at the end of the tunnel for this team.
I would love you to tell me because I
January
don't know what
5th.
the end
January
of the
5th at
season.
approximately 4:30 p.m.
The end of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah, I mean, listen, you kind of just summed everything up. Better quarterback play would have this Giants team at least be competitive this year. You would believe if they had a mid quarterback, a league average quarterback, this Giants team would probably be 1 or 2 games above 500. If this team had, let's say you could clone Alex Smith right now, okay? And you take
yeah,
prime Alex Smith, who was a good quarterback, but not a great quarterback, right? Always in that 15
game
range, that 10
manager.
to 15 range, right? Maybe 10 at the high point, 20 at the low point. So smack dab at 15, 16, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have Alex Smith right now, what's the Giants record?
4-4.
Yeah. I mean, listen, that's just how it is. It's sucks, but you got to live with it.
The problem with this is that if the season ended today, despite them being 2-6, they'd be picking number 9 in the NFL draft. That's
Yeah,
why
that's a hard pill to swallow.
this season is even getting worse and worse because despite the fact that they've been playing horrific, there are still 8 teams above them that have also been playing pretty bad as well. So that's why, like, even if like I said, like, oh, let's just lose the rest of the year and go play for the NFL draft, the 8 teams above them are also probably in that mindset right now. So that's why it's like it's just annoying and frustrating. Like, there's nothing else you really can do. You have to we knew going into the season that it was going to be another bad year. You were hoping that maybe things would be different, and it just not getting different. Offensive line has now gone to shit ever since Andrew Thomas got injured. They finally have a running game, it looks like, which is great to see because early on it did not look like that to be the case. Tyrone Tracy has looked like a revelation ever since he's now become the starting running back. They still have a great receiver in Malik Neighbors. The defense is really good against the pass for most parts in terms of pass rush. Their secondary is still very bad, but they also cannot stop the run, which has been an absolute problem for them all season. So as a fan, it is what it is at this rate. Like they just suck. They are just horrible. And it sucked for me, Johnson, because Monday night was probably one of the worst nights I've ever had as a sports fan. Having to watch this game, having to watch the atrocity of that Yankee game that happened as well Monday night, and then also having to watch the Knicks unfortunately lose to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and then having seen Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart in that game get injured at some points in the game. Thankfully, Brunson was back. I don't know the status of Hart going into the next game, but I digress. Like I said, it was a really bad Monday night for me as a sports fan, having to watch all those teams lose. New York becoming the first Metro team to lose in the sports equinox since its inception. So
But we
not a
don't
great
talk
night.
about that.
Yeah, not a great night on Monday. But unfortunately for me, as of this recording on Tuesday, October 29th, I have to watch the Yankees in about 40 minutes. Most likely get swept by the Dodgers. So it can only get worse from here as for me as a fan. And yeah, that's my vibes right now. I'm not in a good place right now with sports. I was about a couple weeks ago. I am now back to reality, unfortunately. So it is what it is. Can't really do anything about it. But that wraps it up for week number 8 in the National Football League. The only other note that we had for this past week, as I mentioned, there was a trade earlier on today. Deontay Johnson, the former Pittsburgh Steeler, as well as Carolina Panther from this past season, is now being traded back to the AFC North, but now he's going to the Baltimore Ravens. So Johnson will have a chance to get some revenge on the Pittsburgh Steelers this season. Lamar Jackson and company get another wide receiver, trying to fix that wide receiving core with Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman. And obviously, Baltimore trying to bounce back after that tough defeat to Cleveland this past Sunday. But Johnson, before we go into the mushy hour, I do have two quick stats for you that I wanted to bring up. I forgot to mention this earlier on before we
I'm
go
all
into
ears.
Week Nine's mushing hour. So for Anthony Richardson, I saw the stat on I believe Monday or maybe it was Sunday. Um, Anthony Richardson has out of 225 quarterbacks since the year 2000. Where do you think he ranks out of 225 quarterbacks in terms of completion rate percentage with 250 plus dropbacks since the year 2000?
224.
Close. He's 222.
Oh, I was close. I knew it was gonna be something. If you give me all of that, I knew it was gonna be close.
Yeah.
That's pretty horrific.
Do you want to know some of the names that are on this list with Richardson?
Uh,
Not good company.
sure. Lay it on me.
Achilles Smith,
Okay, that's
high
good.
rep. Yep. Tim Tebow,
That's also good company.
Ryan Leaf,
Excellent company,
and
actually.
Jamarcus Russell to name a
Ah,
couple
Jamarcus,
names.
QB legend, man who was studying blank film game tapes.
Yeah. So that's just one of the notes I had. And then this note, I'm still wondering how you feel about this game. So for those that don't know, the Patriots beat the Jets this past Sunday, and
I'm still
Johnson,
not happy.
yeah, Johnson, I know is had a very up and down theory about that game because obviously seeing the Jets lose is a very
Oh,
makes
it's
him
funny.
happy.
It's
It
hilarious.
makes you absolutely happy. But at the same time, you want to see New England lose because you're trying to tank for Travis Hunter.
Yep.
And because of that win, the Patriots are right now picked to slated number 3 in this upcoming NFL draft because of Carolina and Tennessee both having just one win on the season. But have you seen the stat about this Jets game from this past Sunday?
I have not. I don't know what you're referencing.
So the Jets this past Sunday scored 20 points. They committed 0 turnovers and held their opponent to under 250 yards of offense. Since 1940, teams were 756 and 0 until with those three metrics, and the Jets lost the game.
So it's now at 756 in Jets. That's the record.
Yes,
That's pretty funny now.
yeah. So maybe I made your feelings about this game a little bit better with that stat, but I could not believe reading that the Jets had all that happen and they still somehow found a way to lose the game at the very end.
Classic Jets gonna jet.
Jets gonna jet, yeah. That's that's the way it be sometimes. But anyway, let's go now into Week Nine's mushing hour, and we'll start off with the New York Jets upcoming. Before we go into that game, solid week for both of us last week in week number 8. I went 5-4, now improving my record just a little bit better in terms of being over 500. You with a very solid 6-2. That Commanders and Bears game really took a big swing for both of us, as I had Bears minus 2.5, you had Commanders plus 2.5. So a big get for you to get that Hail Mary at the end to get the victory for Washington gives you a 6-2 record. You're now 34-26 on the season. I am 40-33. A lot of my extra picks have been because I've taken duplicate picks for some portions of this season. Now, as I mentioned, let's go into the first game of the week as we go to MetLife Stadium for a Halloween game on Thursday night as the Houston Texans go to the Meadowlands to take on the New York Jets. The Jets, despite their tough record this season, are a 2-point favorite with the over-under set at 42.5 for this game.
Texans +2. Lock it in. Pick of the week.
Pick of the week? Oh, okay. So do you lose extra because if they lose this game?
No, I'm just calling it the pick of the week.
Okay. This game is so weird. The Texans, I think, not having Stephon Diggs is definitely going to hurt them. I don't know. I really don't have a good reason to do this pick, Johnson. I'm gonna go with Jets -2. I have no good reason to take it. There's just nothing there's just nothing confident wise in me saying this that makes me think this is gonna happen. So if I was anyone here listening to this, take Johnson's pick at +2 because I don't feel
Hey,
confident
don't try to
whatsoever.
push me.
I'm not. I'm just I'm I don't I really don't think the Jets should win this game. But every metric is saying the Jets should somehow win because of the injuries that Houston has right now in the offensive in the receiving core right now because they are down their top two wide receivers this year. So we'll see. What's our first game of the Sunday slate we got this week?
We have the Denver Broncos going into Baltimore, into M&T Bank Stadium to take on the Ravens. Ravens at home, they are a 9.5-point favorite. Over underslated at 45.5. This is an easy one. Give me Ravens -9.5.
You don't believe?
I don't believe.
You think Baltimore's gonna be that pissed off from the week before because they lost to
Absolutely.
Jameis?
Listen, do you really think Denver's defense is going to be able to stop Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, the Wildcat?
Yeah, Cleveland did.
Cleveland has a much better defense than
Denver's
Denver
been good
does.
this season. Their
Yeah,
defense has been
they've been
solid.
good, but there's a difference between being good and really good. There's a sizable difference.
That's fair. I'll go with Ravens -6.5 just to play it safe. I think they probably win this game. I don't see them losing. If they lose back to back to Cleveland and Denver, there's really big problems in Baltimore. They cannot afford to lose this game, so I will go with Baltimore as well, but I'll do with an alternate spread. Our next game that we have is now shifts us towards Atlanta, Georgia, as the Dallas Cowboys go in to the Mercedes-Benz, Mercedes-Benz to take on the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are a 2.5-point favorite. The over/under set at 52.5. So people are expecting a lot of points in this game. Johnson, what do you got?
Kirktober's over. I still think they win, but the Cowboys cover. Cowboys +2.5.
I'm gonna go with Cowboys +3.5. I think the Cowboys, in my opinion, I think they're gonna win this game. I don't know. I think they're gonna get a little bit healthier. Um, and something tells me this is a spot where Atlanta's supposed to win, and they're probably going to lose. So I go with Cowboys +3.5. Don't be surprised if they come out on top and win this game outright. What's our next game?
We have the Chicago Bears going on the road to take on the Cardinals in Arizona. Cardinals are at home. They are a 1-point favorite. Over underslated at 44.5. For those you don't know, that Kyler Murray's production severely drops off the first week after Call of
Oh
Duty
my,
comes out,
no,
and Black Ops 6
no.
just dropped a couple of days ago. So
He's
give me
max
Bears +1.
prestige. He's
He's got to
max
get max
prestige, bro.
prestige. So Bears
I
plus
mean,
one is a luck.
they got a big win against the Dolphins this past Sunday. No,
Call of Duty wasn't really in full form right now.
that's fair. I mean, to think of this also, who would have thought this game would be a game that we'd be penciling in for a game to watch for on Sunday
Big
for
game.
these two teams? The Bears, I mean, the Cardinals right now are in first place at the season ended. They would win the NFC West if the season ended today. So that's a crazy thing to think of. I've had trouble going back for this game. I think I'm going to lean towards Chicago as well. I'll go with our first mush of the day. I will also go with Bears +1. I'd be stunned if they lose this game. But I could really see this being a very high scoring affair between these two teams. So I'll go with the Bears +1 as well for my pick. Now going into a big NFC West divisional matchup, we have the Los Angeles Rams going into Seattle to take on the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks are home, but despite that fact, the Rams are a 1.5-point favorite with the over/under set at 48.5 in this game.
Give me Rams -1.5 here.
Chisemus, Pukaus.
Give me Puka Oos here. Kenneth Walker, I think he's going to struggle again, and I say that as a Kenneth Walker fantasy owner. No DK Metcalf probably. Tyler Lockett can't be a wide receiver one, neither can JSN. So with those limited options at receiver, they're going to stack the box. Kenneth Walker's not going to be able to really do anything. Rams 1.5 is a lock.
Oh wow, we got two locks this week, huh?
Two locks.
Two locks this week. Okay. This is tough because if Metcalf plays, I think Seattle wins this game.
Absolutely. This is contingent on Metcalf not playing my pick.
He's still week to week, so I don't know. Like we saw him not play last week against Buffalo. Does that mean he's going to be available for this game? I'm not necessarily sure. Because of that, I will also go with the Rams -1.5. Again, it's like you said, it's very contingent on what happens with Metcalf. If Metcalf plays, I think Seattle gets it done. But if Metcalf's not playing, the Rams should get the win in this game, especially with them now having Cooper Cup and Puka Nacua back for them in this one. But that's not the problem. That's probably not the biggest divisional matchup we have this week, John. So we have a huge matchup in the NFC North.
Absolutely. We have Lions Packers. Detroit going into Green Bay, into Lambeau Field to take on the Packers, despite being a road dog, or I should say on the road. They are not dogs. They are the favorite here. Lions are a 3.5 point favorite on the road. Packers at home again. 48.5 is the slated over under, same as that Rams Seahawks game. Give me Lions -3.5 because I even though I want to bet against Dan Campbell, I don't think I can. I don't know what the if Jordan Love's gonna be fully healthy. So
I don't
with that
think he
all being
plays.
said, Lions -3.5. I think that's an easy one.
I don't think he plays because the Packers have their bye. I think they have their bye week the week after, so they probably just rest him this week and then let him rest the week after, so that he gets 2 weeks off. And even if you lose this game, you're still 6-3 in the season, so it's not all lost cause. They're obviously trying to play for a division title, but you don't want to rush Jordan Love back and then have him get injured, and then makes it even worse as the season goes along. Um, so because of that reason, I think Malik Willis could keep this maybe close for the Packers. He's played pretty solid for them in the 2 games he's played, but I will also be going with the Lions -3.5. So that's 3 straight mushes, Johnson. So not boding well for these teams going in on
You
Sunday.
gotta stop picking my picks, man. Come on.
I I told you pre-show. I said there's probably going to be a lot of picks that are going to be on the same side of us. So that's unfortunately the case so far we've had this show. Maybe we'll be different on the final 2 games this week. And let's go into one of our first primetime games of the week as we have the Indianapolis Colts with now Joe Flacco starting, going into Minnesota to take on the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are at home, are a 5 point favorite. The over-under set at 46.5 for this game.
Colts +5. Jack Flacco Mania is gonna run wild, and he's gonna steal one on the road here.
How many wrestling references have you made this episode?
If it's not on purpose, that I promise you.
Is it? Is it though?
This is
Like,
really not on. This is my brain just slowly
uh,
deteriorating in real time, and
so
everyone here is listening to it.
you got wrestling brain rot, is what you're saying to
Pretty
us.
much, yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I would say I have it too, so it's okay. That's fair. Um, man, I don't know. I think Flack. I will go with Colts +7, so it's not a full mush. I I think they might win this game outright. I really think they might win this game. The Vikings are scaring me those last couple weeks. They have not looked good, and if Flacco's in, I like the production that you get out of some of the receivers they have on this team, and I think Jonathan Taylor plays strong in this one for Indianapolis on Sunday night. But let's go into the final week, the final game of this week, Johnson, and it's a Super Bowl rematch on Monday night.
Oh yay, a Super Bowl rematch. I hope it has the same outcome though, but I doubt it.
True. Yeah. No.
We have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going into Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. Remember, this is not Kansas City, Kansas. It's Kansas City, Missouri. Chiefs at home, eight and a
I
half
can
point
tell this.
favorite, 45.5 points is the over under here. Give me Bucks +8.5 because I just don't want to see one of my picks lose, and I think this is the losing one. This is the luck to lose this pick.
Mm. Uh, I'm gonna go with Chiefs -8.5. I hate it. I hate the pick so much, but the Bucks are just so injured right now. If they had Mike Evans and Godwin for this game, I wouldn't say
Oh,
I bench.
absolutely different story if they have those
It's a
two.
way different story. I wouldn't say they win the game, but they would keep it really, really close. I just don't see a scenario where they keep this game close. My they don't really have a strong running game. The Chiefs are one of the best running rush defenses in the entire league. And without many big play wide receivers, you're trusting Kate Allen so much in this game. And I think the Chiefs will have him on lockdown and make sure that he does not get open as often. And they have to go to guys like Sterling Shepard and Jalen McMillan out on the outside. So because of that reason, I will go with the Chiefs minus 8.5 to round out week number 9 to mushing hour and get us one step closer now to week number 10. And keep in mind, Johnson, next week is the trade deadline in the NFL. So we're going to see if there's any other trades that we get to see in the NFL. We've already seen a couple moves happen in the last couple weeks. We'll see if maybe we get any other moves next Tuesday. A very busy week next Tuesday for a lot of other reasons, but college football playoff poll, NFL trade deadline, and there might be some election going on. I think that's going on, right, Johnson?
I'm not really
I'm not really.
familiar with that.
I haven't been catching up on the news. I think there's some election going on as
By
well.
election, do you mean are we electing Rick Pitino to the Hall of Fame for a second time? If so, I'm down with that.
If we get St. John's in national championship, I will be right with you and induct them as well. Absolutely. But if you want to listen to stuff about college basketball, make sure to tune into our college basketball preview show that we just recorded as of yesterday. That should be up on all of our pages.
It
Very
is.
good listening as we dove into the college basketball season and what we expect to see this upcoming year of college basketball. But for this week in the NFL, that is going to do it for this week's edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. We're now through 8 weeks of this NFL season. Going into week number 9, we are now about to be at the halfway point in this year's NFL season, and a lot to unfold. A lot of big trades still going down. We'll see if any moves get made next Tuesday in the trade deadline. And will we see big upsets that we saw this past Sunday? We'll have to find out and see. But overall, it's been a great NFL season, even if my Giants still suck. I'm still a very salty fan, folks, as you can tell. But anyway, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. My name is Nicholas Favoda. That's my co-host, Andrew Johnson. Have a great rest of your weekend.